show, and I'm joined now in the studio by the director of the New Culture Forum, Peter Whittle. Peter, you got off the mark on this early doors today. Yesterday we were saying on the show, Gaza has poisoned our street. Now, has it poisoned the mother of all parliaments?
Well, what's happened is what's been basically a matter of intimidation by Islamism in this country over about the past 20 years has finally reached Parliament, and that's why they're taking it seriously. I mean, I think that when you look at what's happening there, and all the shenanigans, which most people will look at home and just be appalled by, the fact is it sort of rather masks what I would see as the real issue, and that is that basically MPs, Labour MPs particularly, and some Tories, are being increasingly intimidated, as Chris said there, I think, not by people outside, but locally, you know, and the general atmosphere is one of intimidation. This is the real issue. The problem is really, Martin, is that the House of Commons has got a record of basically ignoring the real issue. When Sir David Amish was murdered, what happened? The Commons talked about social media, the dangers of social media. Similarly, when Mike Freer stood down because of intimidation, you know, the MP for Finchley, quite recently, I think this speaker said something like, you know, we've all got to be nicer to each other. In other words, totally missing the point. I mean, whether it is a school teacher in Batley going into hiding, he's still in hiding for showing his pupils cartoons of Mohammed, right up to this very week where William Shawcross, who wrote the report about Prevent, you know, the anti-terrorist strategy, said that in fact fear of being considered Islamophobic meant that actually it wasn't being effective. This is going through our whole society, as is indeed a form of sectarianism. That is the most worrying thing of all, and it's related to this.
And I think you bang on. And I think people are afraid to call this out. And we also saw this with the grooming gang scandals. And you're right, we're covering the Shawcross report later on in the show. Islamic extremism being allowed to fester and to flourish because we're afraid to call it out. And I was in that crowd yesterday at Parliament. Coming to that a bit later, I was assaulted in that crowd. They were putting up placards early doors of your grandchildren will know how you voted today. And I said to Chris Hope yesterday at that point, they're going to be terrified in there of how they vote. It's a matter of public record, and they've got to go and do their surgeries, be in their constituencies. It's not just the Tory MPs. We've seen Rachel Reeves harassed on the streets, Sir Keir Starmer chased off a train, Angela Rayner harassed on the campaign trail. If you don't stop the mob ends up controlling the country.
Yes, but the problem is that basically, as I said, this has been going on for a very long time. Appeasement does not work. We've just seen a massive piece of appeasement happening.
So what's the answer?
Well, I mean, basically, two things I would say, actually, to that. First of all, Martin, you've got to have, I would say, and you might think it's unrelated, but it's not, a complete halt to any further migration, because that's at the very root of all of this. That you've got to have. And they've got to basically stop appeasing and start, well, not being cowards, because people have been living with this now for a long time in all these different areas of life.
And Peter, new laws are often bandied about, but I was witnessing last night new laws, for example, to remove face masks, were simply not being upheld because there might be the bill, there isn't the will. And if you don't stop this aggro at grassroots level on the streets last night outside Parliament, it just grows and grows and grows, and it will take over.
Well, yes, but there's something much more worrying coming down the line, which is when we have a Labour government, which we will probably, they're going to embed in legislation a particular new definition of what's known as Islamophobia, which is so wide that, frankly, it seems that any criticism, actually, of Islam will almost be out of bounds. These things are related. I think that the crucial point about now, really, Martin, is that we must not be waylaid by what is essentially a political argument that's going on between the parties and why one wasn't allowed to have their debate and all of that. What we are seeing is basically the influence that growing sectarianism is having on our political culture, and now, obviously, in Parliament too. It's very dangerous.
Peter Whittle, thought-provoking, forthright, excellent as ever. Thank you very much for joining us on the show. Superb start to this.